Hi, it's me JD and welcome back to my channel. This video will be a tutorial on how to incorporate the Dutch door technique into your paper crafts and handmade cards. Make sure you hit the subscribe button because you'll be back. You will watch more of these videos. We are friends now, I've declared it. And now let's jump into the first example. This first card involves making a very simple and basic Dutch door. First, for all of these cards, you're going to need some kind of scoring board or way to make really sharp folds in your cardstock. For all of these cards, I'm going to use an 8.5 by 5.5 inch note card that's scored right down the middle. Using my stamping tool, I'm going to stamp this Floral Frame stamp right on the inside of the right side of my note card. For newer stamps, especially if they're as big as this one, you're going to want to season the stamp or at least use a stamping tool. That way, if you miss a spot, you can just stamp it again if you needed to. I'm going to be practicing my coloring skills on camera today. I know, your girl can't color, but she's going to attempt. The imagery on the stamp is beautiful, but also kind of busy, which I hope will mask all of my coloring flaws. I stamped the image in a Copic friendly ink, and now I'm hoping to just stay inside the lines. I'm going to color these flowers in a rainbow pattern to give the inside of this note card some pop. For all of these cards, I'm going to focus on making the inside of the card really special and the outside of the card, well, boring. Well, I shouldn't say boring. Intriguing enough to open the card and see the special Dutch door surprise that's on the inside of the card. It's like an inside-out card. Alright, almost done coloring this image, and then I will move on to creating the actual Dutch door mechanism. So I have another piece of 8.5 by 5.5 inch note card, and then I'm going to use a ruler and a pencil to mark the height of my Dutch door. Now, instead of covering the bottom half of the inside of my card, I only want just a small panel to cover that sign that's in the middle of that floral frame. So I've marked off how tall I want the Dutch door to be. I'm only going to be marking up the right side of this panel since that will be the only side that has the Dutch door function. Using a paper trimmer, I'm only going to cut where I marked on the right side of the panel right down to the middle score line, and then I'm going to stop. And then I'll do the same for the bottom half. I'm just going to cut where my pencil line is and stop right at the score line in the middle of my Dutch door panel. Now I'm going to cut off the excess from the bottom as well as the excess from the top. Your Dutch door can be as wide or as tall as you want it. In my case, I just wanted it a specific size to only cover the frame within the floral frame, which is why I'm making 2 cuts instead of 1. After doing your cutting, you should be left with an inside Dutch door panel. I should mention that for the inside Dutch door panel, you want to use a lighter weight cardstock so that your card isn't so heavy or hard to open. And as you can see, I have some excess hanging off the right of my inside panel because you could see it when I closed the entire card. So I just trimmed that off with a paper trimmer. Next, you'll want some really strong double-sided adhesive. I'm going to place the double-sided adhesive on the left side of my note card on the inside part, and then I'll peel off all of the backing, then line up the inside panel of my Dutch door panel to my note card. And it sounds a lot easier than how I'm explaining it, but it's super easy. I just place the Dutch door panel on the inside, fold over the note card, and I'll pick up the left side of the Dutch door panel. And now I have a little Dutch door in the inside of my card. So next I'm going to stamp the outside of the card, really simple fashion. I want the surprise to be on the inside. I'm also going to be stamping the inside of the Dutch door, and then finally the frame within my floral frame. This Dutch door technique is a great way to add some extra fun and a little surprise for your recipient. You can keep it as simple or as interactive as you want. And speaking of interactive, I'm going to level up the next level of Dutch door by making a mermaid card. So starting off with the same techniques, I'm going to start off with my note card as well as my Dutch door panels. For this card, my Dutch door will be made up of die cuts entirely. So I have the Dutch door panel just as a base, and then using this fun wave die, I'm just going to cut out different wave shapes to form like the ocean for my Dutch door. Since there are so many layers to this Dutch door, you'll want to keep the weight of your cardstock on the lighter side, as in use the cheap stuff from the local craft store, not the good stuff, if you know what I mean, because otherwise your card will be like a half a centimeter thick if you use the heavier weight cardstock. I'm just going to layer up all of these waves with some with my tape runner, and then I'll just trim off the excess from the bottom to make sure it fits my Dutch door panel. And as you can see, I always have some stuff hanging off the right side, so just gonna use my paper trimmer again to trim off the excess. For this card, I actually did the reverse steps of the previous card. I worked on the Dutch door panel first as opposed to working on the inside of the note card first. It really doesn't matter either way, it just depends on the goal of the scene you want to build. So in this case, I wanted this scene where a mermaid was sticking her tail up above the water, and that's what you saw peeking out behind the Dutch door. And that's why I'm working on the Dutch door panel first. I made sure to cut out the wave die cuts to the size and shape that I wanted, and now I'm just cutting out the Dutch door panel to make sure that I have a foundation for all of those wave die cuts to go on. Using some more double-sided adhesive, I'm just going to peel off the backing and attach those waves on there. And after testing out the placement of my Dutch door, I realized that that back panel kind of looks awkward. So I'm going to add another piece of cardstock with some more double-sided tape to make it look, I don't know, less awkward. Okay, now for the inside of the note card. Using my stamping tool again, I'm going to stamp my mermaid and some other ocean elements. As I mentioned before, I wanted her tail to stick out of the water of the Dutch door, because then the recipient, will get the card, they'll open the first panel and be like, oh, is that a whale or a mermaid? And they open the second panel and be like, oh, it's a mermaid! Yeah, I get excited about little things. Sue me. Anyway, so I'm going to color in my mermaid again. I don't know why I'm doing all this coloring on screen. I'm speeding it up so you don't see what a terrible coloring artist I am, and all of the coloring outside of the lines, as well as the terrible shading and blending that I am guilty of. In retrospect, for a cleaner look, I probably should have just did some ink blending and masking before I stamped and colored the image. But what are you gonna do? The mermaid's done, and now I'm just going to attach the inside Dutch door panel to my note card. And you can see from the front, you can see the inside of the card, the recipient opens it, and they see a mermaid surprise, which ended up it didn't look terrible, except for this big white open random strip that I'm going to color in with my Copic marker. Hey, it's handmade, it's not Hallmark. And now I'm going to work on the front of the card just by stamping my sentiment. I'm going to stamp a treasure chest on there too for some more fun, and then color this bad boy in. I really like how simple this card is and unassuming it is from the outside, but then once the recipient receives it, they open the first panel, and then they are intrigued by the tail, they open the second panel, and there's a mermaid in the back. So it's a super cute card for all the mermaid lovers out there. So this last card is sort of a Dutch door, but kind of not. I have this really fun background die that I ran through my die cutting machine, but I left the left side of it kind of hanging off of my die cutting sandwich so it wouldn't cut completely through. And that's what left me with this kind of semi-cut background piece that you see here. Since this background die is really ornate, it didn't make for the cleanest cut, because I think it was meant to really cut out a frame panel as opposed to like an edge panel. So I'm just going in with some scissors and just cutting off any excess pieces, trying to clean this entire Dutch door panel off. That part didn't take very long at all. And this is a great technique if you want to stretch the background dies that you own, just because, background dies can get pretty pricey, and instead of using it for a panel, you can also use it to create an edge or an interactive element for your cards. And I'm just using a pencil to poke out any random stragglers I have, like the pieces in her fairy wings or the pieces around the leaves and branches. Next, I'm going to get out my note card that's already scored. I'm going to place this inside to make sure that everything fits and it's looking the way I want it to look. Now it's time to work on the inside panel. And for this, I'll be doing some ink blending. I wanted it to look like a fairy sky, so I'm getting out some distress inks. I really like the vibrant color of distress inks versus distress oxides, so that's why I went with the good old-fashioned distress inks. I'm just working on building up the color, moving from a yellow to greens to olives to kind of get this glow in the sky, and I'm loving how this looks. Next, I'll use some more double-sided adhesive to attach my Dutch door panel to my note card. This card ended up being my favorite of all the three. And like the other cards, I'm going to keep the front of the card as simple as possible. I'm just going to stamp a short sentiment on the inside. And obviously you need like a white pen or a white gel pen or a white colored pencil to write your sentiment on the inside of the card because you're using black cardstock. And then using some stamps and some Nouveau drops, I'm going to decorate the outside of the card very simply. And that does it for this card. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this technique for card making. Let me know down in the comments what other kinds of techniques or cards you'd like to see in the future. Thanks!